What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious, along with Just the Total Package, and Craig the British Bulldog, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing no opinions with you. Today's topic, the Legacy of Owen Hart, revisited. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at our Wrestling channel. And check out exclusive content on Daily Motion
that we're not
at our Wrestling Podcast. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019 or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. Just a little perspective here. We did the Legacy of Owen Hart, I believe, on audio only a while back. I believe it even got quite emotional when we did it because it was such a tragic story. No, what didn't happen?
I don't care.
So we are revisiting. Why the revisit? What's on your mind? Tell us the skit. I know we're going free.
We did a lot of stuff before video. We were audio only for the first year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
We were,
and then we finally went to YouTube, and then we were able to do video. And this is the form you see us now in. And we did a lot of stuff. A lot of that we did Legacy of China early on. We did Legacy of Owen.
Right.
We did Legacy of Stone Cold.
I enjoyed China's episode.
We did Legacy of Bischoff. And so I'm just like, man, you know what? There's a lot of legacies I look back on. Even some of the early video stuff where I went back and listened to it, and we tried to cram everything in. We were doing hour and a half episodes, I remember back in the day, which is way too much. But we didn't want to miss anything. And then I realized that wrestling fans are pieces of shit and they don't care anyway. And they're only going to remember what they want to anyway. So it doesn't matter how factual you get or how detailed you get. They're only going to remember what they want anyway. So I was like, you know what? Today's Jess is let's keep our episodes within 30 to 40 minutes. Maybe some legacies will be 45, which is acceptable. And I was like, what if I kind of start a new series called The Revisited, where we go back and we listen to our old legacy and we just go, wow, what do we miss? Or maybe we mentioned something but didn't harp on something that was super important. There's a lot of legacies that I'm looking back on now going, wow, why didn't we talk about that? Or this was more important than that. So why did I try so hard to make sure this was mentioned, but when we really should have done that? There's a lot of wrestlers past that we don't have to focus on every minute of that, it's just big things. So with Owen, I wanted to do it because even though May was a couple months ago as we're recording this, this is the 25th year anniversary of his death. He died 25 years ago in 1999 in May is when he passed away. And so it's kind of crazy. He was one of our first legacies. Dave got super emotional, which was embarrassing. And so
that's how it happened. I agree.
It's Owen is one of the people that is sort of immune. It's when someone else dies, you could be like, oh man, steroids caught up to him. And that's not a bad thing, right? A lot of these wrestlers did steroids and they did drugs and medication and did what they had to do on the road. And it's not the same anymore, thank God. But a lot of these wrestlers
that wasn't this.
Yeah, a lot of these wrestlers wrestled 300 plus days a week and traveled, never saw their families, got hooked on fast food. And then, so what do we do? If we have crap diets, then we got to work out real hard the next day and take a little something to, beef us up or whatever. And it killed them. It stopped their hearts and their sleep, or they were drug addicts or whatever, they became addicted. And, but Owen was different. Owen died from a stupid stunt. And it's easy to look back and be like, he had no business up there. Look, wrestling's a show, right? And this was 1999. This was in the middle of the Monday Night Wars. So both companies were doing things. Sting had been coming down from the rafters since 97. So it's to really look.
Right.
I get when his family says that he died needlessly, and he did die needlessly. But they were doing stunts for everything back then. Anything could happen. He could have got dropped on his head and got paralyzed or died. There's a lot of things that could happen. And it just increased his chances when you put him up in the rafters and you lower him down. But like I said, Sting had been doing it for a year straight. And it's just one of these things that just went wrong. And for those that don't know, which I refuse to believe there's anybody who doesn't know how Owen passed away, his harness gave way. And whether it was defective or whatever, and he fell from the top of the Kemper Arena. And he landed in the ring and died. And
over the Edge pay-per-view.
Yep. Yeah, over the Edge pay-per-view in 1999 of May. And we lost a guy who, by every other wrestler, was hilarious, always pranked people, always kept it light. You had all these people who were away from their families some of them were doing drugs, some of them were just medicating to get from one town to the next. And you had this guy that didn't do any of that stuff, that was really just trying to ride out his contract so he and his wife could build their dream home and raise their kids. And he wanted to retire from wrestling early and get out of it and he was very frugal with his money, and he was robbed of that. And listen, is there somebody at fault? Yes, and they'll find that out. I don't know what the result is right now of the Martha Hart lawsuit or anything like that.
If you follow the money, you'll determine that. Just
I don't know what happened. I know that Martha, she does business with AEW, and every year they have the Owen Hart Cup tournament, which is also why I wanted to do this, because they just finished that. And so they pay tribute over on AEW, and Martha Hart shows up and she gives the trophies out or whatever, or blesses the winner and all that stuff, but she will not do business with WWE. And we'll see as the Triple H regime rolls on if that changes. But she did not want anything to do with Vince and the WWE, because she's like, you killed my husband. And listen, I am never going to tell anybody, especially a widow, that she should never grieve her husband. I will never tell her that. But listen, pro wrestling is full of a lot of stuff. I'm more upset, and I'm still upset 25 years later, that we lost someone with a ridiculous stunt. But to look back and get mad at Russo or whoever else was responsible for doing that, it's like, dude, it was pro wrestling, man. It was a needless stunt.
I would never allow for Owen to be recognized by a company that actually is responsible for his death.
I would never let WWE put his name on a piece of silver and say that they got that. We have built a foundation that helps put people in homes, that helps single moms like my mom was, that let kids go to school. This is all done in his namesake. This is all got Owen Hart written all over it. This is how communities, this is how people, society remembers him. And that's how we want it to be done.
Yeah. So I wanted to revisit him. It's 25 years later. It's really funny because a couple of clips that I sent you guys a couple of weeks ago was Mark, Undertaker does a podcast, and he had Mark Henry on. And they were talking about Owen, about how Owen was fucking hilarious. Like, they would get him in a side headlock or whatever, and that's when you call spots, right? So Owen would get in a side headlock, and he'd be like, okay, throw him into the ropes and do a flip triangle, ram buckle, and like all that stuff. And they're like, what the fuck are you saying right now? What are you doing? And then it was just a shoulder tackle, and he would do all that stuff or whatever. And what made me laugh the hardest
he did all
was
the time.
Brett always took himself too seriously, and I think that's been a story told many times. And Owen would fuck with him.
They couldn't have been more different that way.
Yeah, he said Mark Henry would be like, they get fucked. Brett would get up and push him and shit, and they're like brothers, and they're pushing each other back. And Owen would take him on. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I don't know why you're mad. I'm the best Hart, you know that." And he said Brett would just take a deep breath and walk away and be like, "Motherfucker!" And like it was great, and they were just laughing because they were just like, "Man, Owen would do it all the time." And we heard a lot of stuff. I think we talked about some of the pranks in the Legacy episode.
When somebody would like have food delivered to the hotel, and he would get the food, like he would get somebody else's food, but then he would call from the front desk, like he would take it so they didn't have to take the food up to the room. Owen would get on the house phone and call whoever ordered the food, and then he would be the delivery guy. You come down here and get this pizza. I've been out here waiting for you 30 minutes. And the boys, no, well, just bring it on up. They said, No. You get off your big lazy ass, get out here, and I better get a tip. And this would go on, right? So the boys would bite every time. And so the boys finally, they'd get so pissed, they'd come down ready to fight. And then Owen's gone. Like Owen leaves the pizza or whatever it is on the desk, and now he's hiding somewhere so he can watch. Just so he can watch. And then guys coming down in their shorts and their flip-flops looking for this delivery person. And, who's here? Who was that?
And we talked about his wrestling
Undertaker
career.
had one when he was talking about in the Royal Rumble. Battle Royals, you do not do stuff like you throw people to the ropes because there's so much chaos in there, because you don't know where there's so much action. It's just a dangerous thing. But Owen would make it a point in Battle Royals and Royal Rumbles to throw people across the ropes and like call spots, knowing that like someone else will head it off and like duck him. It's a very dangerous move, but he just did it to get a giggle out of whoever. It's just like the most dangerous thing in Battle Royals is to like is to do this stuff when there's so
Wouldn't-
many people in the ring, and he's like, only
Wouldn't
Owen
he
can get away with it.
Wouldn't he like deliberately dead weight too when someone's gonna pick him up? He would like.
Yeah.
I don't know if people know this, just to explain it to the audience, but you can like force yourself into a situation and make yourself feel heavier when someone is trying to pick you up. And he would literally dead weight himself when people are trying to body slam him, where they would really have to like grunt him over, like. God damn it, Owen!
Yeah, the reason why wrestling's an art form is because it always has to be a ballet between two people doing it.
Yeah.
And like when you pick someone up, they're doing the work when you pull them up by the hair and the head and stuff. So, I mean, try to body slam someone who doesn't want to be body slammed. It's an awkward, terrible thing.
It's a really hard thing to do, right?
You dead weight someone, it's like it's so funny.
If you're fighting the resistance to be picked up, it's gonna be you have to be extremely strong to take that person over. And head to toes.
And to survive on the road, I think this stuff, like whether it was drugs or whether it was alcohol, but Owen probably did it through ribs. And it's only this light stuff that gets you through the mundane of 250 days on the year on the road, finding gym, having to eat, get to the arena. And whether it was in the car or in the locker room, like morale is important. And Owen was apparently just the guy that like, oh, fucking Owen. Davey Boy would always, the Bulldog.
So, and in the legacies, I write a script for us or whatever, and I'm very bullet pointed or whatever. And I this is the first revisited that we've ever done, and I want to do many of them. And I love that we're gravitating towards the ribs because this is naturally we just went to this. There's no script for this episode. There's nothing like that. It's just talking about them. So I love that we've gravitated towards the ribs. And the famous one, my favorite, is Bret Hart told the story on his Hall of Fame speech where Reggie Parks was the guy who designed the belts. And I'm pretty sure it's the same Reggie Parks. And Stu knew him. Stu Hart did. And so he was sharing a room with Stu one time. And he remembers Stu just answering the phone. He's like, "Hey, Reg, how you doing?" "Good, good." And he's like, after, I'm doing my shit on the other side of the room or whatever. And like, I just hear my dad getting more agitated. He's like, "What?"
And I remember my dad going, "Reg, if you'd wanted to try me, why didn't you try me?" And I remember he got so worked up. I mean, he was like red and pacing around. The veins were coming out in his forehead and all that. And then all of a sudden I just saw him. He just slammed the phone down, sat down. And he looked at me, he goes, "That bastard Owen, he got me." I remember Owen, he told me that he was pushing my dad's buttons so much that he couldn't take it anymore. He was laughing. Like my dad was, he was saying all kinds of stuff to my dad. And, it was one of those great stories with my brother Owen. If you knew him, I'm sure he pulled a joke on you somewhere.
But it's hilarious, like that, like Owen was just fucking his dad over, like fucking with Stu and everybody else. And like, there's the famous popcorn thing where Foley and in a house match at Owen, they got a bag of popcorn, the plastic bags of popcorn, and they were hitting each other with it, and they were selling like they were hitting each other with steel chairs. And like Austin was on the outside of the ring, and he put his hand out, and they just saw Austin's body bouncing up and down because he was laughing so hard.
He's just laughing so hard.
Yeah, it's just amazing stuff that like Owen used to do. And Craig, I don't know if you remember, we saw WrestleMania 12 live. We went to the Anaheim Pond. And we looked outside, and I will never forget, there was a big tour bus out in front. And remember, Craig, if you walk out to get concessions, the pond is what, it's not called the pond anymore. Is it Honda Center?
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is now. It's got a big window when you walk out front, and you see the front where the tour bus was. And Owen was in the opening match, and you saw him with his kids, and he was hugging them, and he got on the bus. And I remember we looking, we're all, "That's Owen and Davey Boy out there." Like, so we just kind of saw him, and like, it was just really, like, there's just so many different things. I wish I could have met him. I wish that I could have, seen him more. We saw a house show with him and Brett in an Iron Man match. And like, we saw Owen a lot, like, in our house show days, like we would end up seeing Owen. His tag team with Yokozuna, we saw him at the Storm Stadium. It was him and Yoko against Sean and Brett. No, sorry. It was him and Yoko against Luger and Bulldog at the Storm Stadium when we went and saw them.
And I think he was even doing a rib there. Who held up like the plastic chair, and someone was like, "Oh no, not the plastic chair."
It might have been Owen. Yeah, it might have been Owen too.
Yeah.
And they did that funny spot where Owen would come in to save Yoko, and then Yoko would pretend like he's falling, and he would fall on his ass and crush Owen's foot, and Owen would hop up and down and pretend his foot was hurt or whatever. And he did that too, and that was
I
really funny.
forgot all about that. Oh
Yeah.
my god. We
And
saw
I can't
that
count how
live,
many
front
times.
row.
I can't count how many stuff from 96, 97 that we've done review wise. We've reviewed some pay-per-views, and us just reviewing a match with Owen in it, going and then Owen did this, and our jaws dropped. It's like, well, there'll be a tag match, and then out of nowhere, out of the fucking camera frame, a perfect missile drop kick will nail somebody, and then you'll remember because he was so good at being silly with his character and over the top and jokey and all that stuff, and just a funny heel, in his character. But then he'll bust out something like that, and I'm like, God damn, Owen's fucking an amazing pro wrestler on top of it. And unfortunately, he gets hindered by his death and dropping Austin on his head, and I hate the fact that the Austin dropping on his head thing gets
those are the big things.
Yeah, which sucks.
I mean, WrestleMania 10, the opening match, Brett and Owen, fantastic. Brett
one
and
of the
Owen
best WrestleMania matches ever.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Just
and the storyline to the end of that when Brett wins the title is so great. When Owen walks out, it's like that should be me. It's incredible.
Kicked your leg out of your leg, the booger in his nose.
I don't. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I love all
Owen
of that.
the King.
All you had to do was just tag me. My hand was there. Just tag me. I knew your leg was bad. I was aware of that. Just tag me. But you're too selfish. You just want to put your sharpshooter on. I could have won the match. I don't need you with a bad leg doing it, Brett. You're too damn selfish. And that's why you're sitting there with a bad leg. And that's why I kicked your leg out of your leg.
It was all Owen. Even his fuck ups were just great. They were just it was Owen.
The thing about Owen was he was so good. He didn't have to take it as serious as 95, 99%.
And it's funny because he won up Brett a lot. And I think overall, I'm not trying to be negative or whatever because it's an episode about Owen, but Brett is a better wrestler in that sense because Brett figured out the WWE way. Brett was great. Owen was great in a totally different way. He was great in the antagonist way, but he was an antagonist to Brett in real life and in storyline. So it was perfect that he and Brett feuded, and it was the snotty younger brother thinking he was better because they were kind of probably like that in real life. And I think that their dynamic, I mean, their SummerSlam match, they couldn't have blood in their cage match at SummerSlam 94. And it was the first 5-star match that Meltzer, I know. But I mean, it was the first 5-star match that Meltzer gave WWF in years. And it was Brett versus Owen at SummerSlam 94. No blood. And that's how good they were in the cage match. They did these leapfrog spots where they were trying to get out the door and they would leapfrog each other. But it was fast. And the way they did it was so amazing. I mean, it's just, Owen was so great. And I can't I miss him so much. When I think about it now, I'm like, God, what if he influenced people now if he was still around? What if he was a trainer? What if,
something he did.
Right. I mean, look at Kevin Owens wanted to be named after Owen and named his son Owen.
Sami Zayn loved him, they all loved because they were Canadian too, but they all loved him, the influence. KO, like you said, Craig, his son is named Owen, right?
Yeah. It's
amazing.
And it's funny when you talk about the brother, you're the eldest, Dave, you're the youngest, right? When you're the youngest or a younger brother, you grow up and you watch the older brother and you idolize him, but you also be like, I don't want to do that shit. So he probably was I'm gonna beat him. He modeled Brett, and he's like, I don't need to be that serious. And he's probably like, Brett's being weird. I'm just gonna go this way. And Owen just probably learned just by observing and just that dude takes himself way too seriously. I'm just gonna do my thing, and he somehow just got on the same kind of level as Brett. Not quite the same world championship level, but talent-wise, without being in the gimmick for himself. You know what I'm trying to say? He didn't take himself as seriously as Brett did, probably by watching
you would argue the younger brother, middle brother, whatever, would always try to find a way to one up or do it better. Brett even knew, if I'm going to do this, it has to be with Owen. And it was that tells you everything you know about Owen. Yeah. If Brett says, we're going to do a brother feud.
I think we were making jokes about it. I don't know if we were talking about unscripted or past episode. We were making fun of the crown, the king. And I think we start as we were talking about it, we're how dumb, but then we start rattling off everyone who made it their own, and it's
Yeah.
actually a super legendary gimmick when you think about it. About Macho King, King Harley Race, and then King Owen, the King of Hearts. What a great name!
Yeah.
And like when
Yeah.
he won King of the Ring '94. Like to this day, you want to see a great 5 minute match? 1-2-3 Kid and
Oh
Owen
my
Hart was
God.
fucking
Yes.
goddamn fire. Like it was just they are so excellent with each other. And like just that whole year, I remember '94 being Owen's year.
Wait a minute here. My first proclamation as king is to be from this day forward known as the King of Hearts. The King of Hearts. And I want you people to remember it with respect for the King of Hearts.
Like from the beating Brett at WrestleMania to main eventing SummerSlam and the first 5-star, if you put any weight on that Wrestling Observer match in WWF, like they didn't like WWF wrestling at all. But like for some reason, even the hardcore fans were like, well, that was a 5-star match. Like, and Owen was a part of it, and Brett was too. But like Owen was a part of it, and like their whole feud was amazing. Like their whole feud was
Right.
He made a
fantastic. It's
gimmick
one
out
of
of
the only
holding
things
two
in 94.
Slammies. Like his Slammy
Yes.
Award winning was
Yeah.
a gimmick. And made it work.
Intercontinental champion, tag team champion.
Two-time
Owen,
Slammy winner. Yeah.
Owen should have won the world title. So many people were like, why couldn't he have just beaten Brett for a month? Like, you know what? There's no point. There's no reason why he didn't. Like
I would argue everybody all assumed they had more time. Even if Owen was gonna retire early, I guarantee they could have brought him out for more. I mean, everybody in their minds like, yeah, Owen says he's going to do this. I'm going to go and I'm going to retire. I'm going to buy my house in the country with my kids and my wife. But everybody out there was like, we have more time with Owen. And we did. We just didn't. We didn't.
And the
For
biggest
whatever
missed
reason,
opportunity, and they didn't have a lot of time, but especially once Brett, got screwed in the Montreal screw job, and they kept Owen on that side. Owen and Austin was it was a made feud. After Austin won the world title, how do you not feud him with Owen? They feuded for the IC title, and Owen dropped him on his head. It's like they in 98, 99, they could have easily put Owen in with Austin. We might have seen Owen and Austin like late 99. You never know. Like, and it's just, it's goddamn, it was right there. And it's like, man,
I have to wonder if Austin was a little concerned because he said Owen never checked on him in the ER, blah blah blah. But
they would have done business.
I think so. I think if it was pushed, they would have done business for sure. They would have squashed that. So it's like I said, it's the whole CM Punk and the executives. Like if someone would have gotten together and said and just punched them all in the dick and said, "Make up and let's make some fucking money."
And I love the fact. Thank God.
Would have happened with
I think
Vince.
Tony Khan is great for keeping his legacy alive with the Owen Hart Memorial, and seeing last week. I kind of understand. Brian Danielson said something to Martha Hart. He's like, Dr. Martha Hart. She's like the mother that I want, like my Brie to be, or something like the perfect mother, like she, or a perfect wife or something. Like he very much complimented Martha Hart. Like the fact that it still has such a prestige of like the winner's going to go to All In, and then keeping us 25 years later, because there's been so many deaths, there's still a belt attached to it, and a trophy attached to it, and a prestige attached to it, and it finished at Calgary Stampede. Like, thank God for Tony Khan for actually doing it, and despite the relationship with WWE, still keeping Owen's kind of memory alive. And the wrestlers, Willow had Owen's gear, and I think someone else didn't. I think Brian Danielson had like a pink on his gear also. Like, so it's awesome, because if you haven't seen Brett and Owen, if you haven't seen Owen's greatest hits, and if you haven't seen what he's done, like really at least they're paying homage to a guy that is that special in a world of people that
even more, especially the blue blazer stuff. Like Owen, we barely touched on this, but Owen was doing high aerial stuff before there was even it was even called
WrestleMania 5. He was in
myself. I pride myself on this question. If it's a trivia question, and you say, when was Owen's first WrestleMania? Most people would say, well, WrestleMania 8 when he was Owen Hart and he faced Skinner. And I was like, nope, it was the Blue Blazer against Mr. Perfect at WrestleMania 5. And Owen Hart was Mr. Perfect's WrestleMania debut as well. And like it's crazy. Like they both debuted at WrestleMania at the same time. You would not connect that. People would miss that question all the time. That the Blue Blazer, first of all, I know unfortunately he died in that same costume. But you know,
He
like
did.
if you didn't know, if they didn't bring it back in 99, you would not have remembered that he was the Blue Blazer. And you definitely would miss the trivia question. When was Owen's first WrestleMania? Most people would say 8 and think they're super smart. But nope, it
And
was
by the way,
5.
that
It was
match
WrestleMania 5.
is a fast match and in the high star rankings as well. That match is incredible. I don't know, man. It's one of those things where we'd like to believe because even like Joe brought up a what if situation. We just released it a few weeks back. Just remember, what if Owen hadn't died? What we'd see. We did spout off a lot of matches. Like we could have seen so much stuff in 01 to 06 with all these fantastic cruiserweights that came up from WCW on the Switch because they were already there. And it's great to fantasize about that, but I also wonder would Owen have, if he didn't go through that horrific incident where he fell to his death because of a stupid latch. At the end of the day, it's really what it's all about. Would he have still been there wrestling people? I don't know. I like to think so. I hope so. Like they would find a way. Like or
You know,
he'd get excited, he'd get
wanted
excited
to,
about these people.
yeah. I know he wanted
and
to
say,
retire,
hey,
but I think that at the very least, if he wanted to retire and leave, because Martha never liked the wrestling industry, from what everybody
she
says.
did
I
not.
mean,
Yeah.
so maybe
Yeah.
he would have retired, and maybe he wouldn't have been an instructor. Maybe he would not have been any of that. But at the very least, he would have came back and gotten put in the Hall of Fame properly, and you know what I mean. Like
Yes.
we would have seen him in video games and all that stuff, and so like you have that too. And on that note, like, you know, we're at 27 minutes and I thought we would struggle to get 20. Like, so I'm really happy that we did this. And best thing I can do is, you know, I know you can make fun of the AEW video game. A lot of people make fun of it because it was, you know, it burned out fast and it's shit. But my kids, they play PlayStation 4. And so I have AEW Fight Forever on it. And one of the first unlockable characters was Owen Hart, and it's a Stampede Owen Hart.
Aw.
And
Really?
I get to
That's
tell my
awesome.
kids who he is, because they will go in to play him. And one time they played him and they're like, who is this guy? And I was like, well, he was special. And I got to show them who Owen Hart was. So I don't care what anybody
love
says about
that.
him. I don't care about anything else. Like the fact is that you can shit on AEW all you want to in a video game and all that stuff or whatever, but there's lessons to be taught. And I got to teach them about Owen. I got to at least tell who is Owen. And I was like, you should play him because he was great. And I got to show him a couple matches and all that stuff. And so that's what it's about. And I get to teach them about Owen Hart. So,
but what happened was, I'm just talking about like a father that was up there, and he was just doing a fucking stupid character. And I'm sorry to get mad, but that's all he was doing. And he's, you know, we get upset about, you know, storylines being done wrong and this guy's not being pushed or whatever. But this guy was up being lured from a cable, doing a stupid fucking character, doing an acting job. And he fucking fell and died. And maybe I'm crying because I have kids that are 2.5 years old and I couldn't imagine it. Maybe I'm crying because I'm stupid and we kind of alcohol ourselves a little bit before this show. But like, I remember being upset and I cried when I heard the answering machine message in 1999 because I just felt like this is dumb. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what? You know, wrestling's fake and we take it all seriously and we get mad when Samoa Joe's booked to lose every week and all that stuff. And, you know, we joke about that. But like, this fucking guy, like, fell from the top of a fucking arena to do a stupid fucking stunt. He was up there and he was elevated and he jerked his cape according to his wife's book, and it just caused the clasp to open up and he fell. And the description is making me cry because the ref describes it as like this fucking force hitting the turnbuckle, and you just looked at him and you just see Owen on the ground on his back, and he tried to raise his arms and sit up. And that image to me,
there's a lot of wrestlers that pass away from their own vices, and it's still sad. There's a lot of wrestlers that do heinous things that we can't talk about anymore, but there's one guy that innocently fell from the top of a building and didn't have a say in it. Like, and he was a guy that was supposed to be the story, the happy ending, and he got to retire and build his house with his wife and leave because he wanted to. And I think it sucks. But At the same time, it doesn't matter. You know, if one day he gets put in WWE Hall of Fame, that's awesome. But if she still doesn't want to do it, that's awesome too, because she shouldn't have to do anything she doesn't want to do. So if we only get to celebrate him once a year at the AEW Owen Hart Cup tournament, fantastic. If we only get to look at him in AEW video games, then you should buy the goddamn video game just because Owen's in it and shut up. Like, so that's it. I just think that, you know,
Okay, I'll pass it back to you for the wrap up, but I hope there's some healing there in the fact that Triple H finds a way to put him in there in a way that doesn't exploit him in a horrible way that makes
why
Martha feel
wouldn't
like
they do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, they make so much money. He could He could just tell, listen, we will donate, because there's an Owen Hart Foundation that Martha, you know, champions. And, you know, you can't tell me that Triple H can't be like, listen, a portion of you let us put Owen in the video game, a portion of all the sales, you'll get millions donated. Like, you know, and I think it should, I'm not saying Vince didn't offer that. I'm sure Vince did offer that. But I think the thing is, like, you were at the helm when my husband fell and died. So I get it. Like, she doesn't want to bring his legacy back to a WWF ring. But at the same time, like, we're selfish because of course I want to see him at the WWE Hall of Fame. Can you imagine?
And he,
you know, like,
he knows Martha on a different level, like the stuff with Brett.
Can you imagine Brett putting him in and all that stuff or whatever, and like just finally closing the book on it or whatever, and just sending Owen Spirit off happy? But at the same time, if she doesn't want to do it, that's fine. Don't do it. Like, because you deserve. You can say whatever you want.
Because that's all you want.
I think she is. And I think, I think Jess kind of summed it up succinctly and perfectly. And I agree with you also, Dave. And honestly, I think looking at Martha Hart last Wednesday on Dynamite, when she congratulated both, when she congratulated just the men. She wasn't involved in the Mariah, Tony Storm angle at the end.
Yeah, because
it's pretty bloody.
Martha Hart, she bleed blood all over.
She looks good. She looks happy. And I don't even think that WWE would have done that Owen Hart Memorial and respected the foundation and honor his legacy like that. So if she's happy with it, I'm happy with her. And
whatever she wants to do.
Keeps Owen's legacy alive. I'm just glad we're talking about him. I'm glad he's still on network television in one of the best, one of the top two federations in the country. I'm glad he's still being talked about. I mean, love him.
100%.
Yeah. 25 years, man.
That blew my fucking mind. I did not think 25 years is a long time and dates us.
The shit that we talk about, you know, we always,
I didn't think he's gone that
so
long.
fucking crazy. The fact that everything in 1999, by the way, is 25 years old is crazy to me.
And also, you said it earlier. So he was in WrestleMania 5, for fuck's sake, and we're on 40.
Yeah. 89.
Come on. It seems like yesterday.
Wow.
And he was the baby.
Yeah, it does.
And he took care, Brett had a stroke. Brett was taken out by Bill Goldberg. But I think Owen would still be going if he wanted to. I think Owen, the Harts protected their bodies and protected they wrestled in a way that was super safe for themselves and for their opponents. I think he'd still be around if he wanted to. There's no reason why he couldn't do what Jericho's doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. We all go back to Jericho. And hey,
when you think about longevity, it's Jericho.
Yeah.
Right. 100%. 100%. Yeah. We miss you, Owen. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, and check out exclusive content on Daily Motion at Our Wrestling Podcast. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2018 or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. For Craig and Jess, this is Dave with the O.W.P signing off. Have a good one.